Good evening, everyone. It's May the 6th, 2012. This is the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting. It is now 7:04, and I invite you all to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, well, call the roll, starting on my right.
Out here.
Condon here.
Leon.
Yeah.
You're here. Okay.
Romaini here. Westland here.
Go here.
Town planner here.
All right, it looks like we have a quorum. We'll start with general public participation. I'm going to read the guidelines for general public participation. The following guidelines are to assist those who wish to speak during public participation session. The Commission welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments. Speakers are requested to first state their name and address for the record. Speakers may offer objective comments about planning and zoning matters and land use related concerns that should be brought to the Commission's attention. The Commission will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Commission, members of the Planning and Zoning Department, nor against any person connected with the Town of Monroe or any other individual, firm, or corporation. Speakers are not to comment on any suggested, proposed, or pending application before the Commission, except at a public hearing for that application. No discussion is permitted by any party of any matters related to pending or ongoing litigation. The Chair has the discretion to limit comment time. Generally, 3 minutes per speaker is allowed. The Chair may allow additional time. Written statements are always welcome and always provided to the Planning and Zoning Commission members. Immediate replies to questions, concerns should not be expected and will be provided at the discretion of the Commission. Okay, are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to participate in the general public participation period? If so, please make yourself known.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Joel Green. I practice law in Bridgeport with the law firm of Green and Gross. I appear before you this evening on behalf of Peter Metropolis, trustee, who, as trustee, is the owner of various properties on Timothy Hill Road that abut the property at 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence Drive. I suppose the first thing I'd like to do is thank the Commission for your service to the town and the community. And I recognize that it's a difficult job. I recognize that hearing applications like this and dealing with violations and matters of the complexity of this one don't make your job any easier. And my client and I appreciate your time and your good work for the town. And I know that my speaking before the Commission is sort of like saying to the winner of the pie eating contest, your prize is more pie, because this has been going on forever. And I know that you've made it through one application. And but at present, and my client has asked me to address you as to the present condition and present circumstances of the site at 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. There are, and just by way of background, I went back and I listened to, and I watched the videos of several of the sessions from the application that was previously pending before the commission for the proposed development or filling of the site. And I was struck by a number of things. Now, the first thing is, as the commission is aware, there are existing violations on this site. They are violations relating to the over excavation of the site and the filling of and grading of the site without permits, without adequate permits. Certainly the excavation exceeded the permit that had been issued, but subsequently there have been filling and grading activities by a previous owner and by the present owner of the property, and there is no authority for any of those activities, and that was specifically conceded on the record at the hearing on November 19th, and the consulting engineer for the applicant conceded that there were several activities that have been conducted without permits. The thing that strikes me is the applicant has stated several times and stated on November 19th that all materials that have been brought into the site were included in manifests. And I could certainly, I'm going to just be very brief tonight, and I could give you a more exhaustive report on what was stated, including the time of each of these statements. But in several instances, and for example, there was a comment, exact manifests of everything that has been brought to the site were maintained, and that material is in the possession of the owner of the property. I note that on 3 separate occasions at public hearings, various commissioners, including specifically Commissioner Ambrosi, have asked for the materials to be the manifests or site intake forms to be produced for the commission, and also materials and documents evidencing material that was sold from the site. Generally speaking, that material has not been provided to the commission. Now, I provided the commission in anticipation of this meeting on October 1 or prior to October 1, in anticipation of the October 1 meeting. There were several material intake documents that were provided to the commission, and they are items 3A and 3B from the materials for your meeting on October 1. The applicant did not, in fact, go forth that evening, but those materials are readily available right there on the town website. We went through those materials, and I've provided you, interestingly, they were redacted in certain instances. I'm not really sure why, but we were able to identify all of the sites which are reflected in those materials for which demolition material was brought to the site. We then served FOI requests on each of the municipalities for which those material intake forms were provided. And in many of the instances, there were applications for demolition permits in those towns. And as part of that process, the applicant has to identify where the demolition material is going to be disposed of. And I can report to this commission that in no instance was 64 Cambridge Drive or 4 Independence Drive identified as a site where demolition material was going to be deposited. And we are in the process of investigating how it is that material came to this site. Additionally, the applicant testified on November 19th that material brought to the site has been processed. That is, demolition material was brought to the site and rebar and other materials were crushed or somehow rendered and removed and placed in bins. And under your regulations, there can be no such processing of materials. And in fact, your regulations clearly state that when it comes to crushing or processing materials on site, and with respect to sorting, grading, crushing, or other machinery for treatment or processing of material, all permitted such activities, regardless of permitted location, shall not include, permit, or involve materials from off-site locations. And this owner has readily admitted that it has processed material on the site that it has received. Moreover,
Mr. Green, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up your comments, please.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up your comments.
Well, okay, I can do that. So briefly, the commission also received a DEP guidance that we've provided to the commission, which similarly provides that excavation or demolition material has to be disposed of at a proper facility. I think that it's got to be easier to ask for forgiveness than for permission. So the applicant has not filed a new application at this point, but it seems to me that this commission should provide and require that this violation be addressed by requiring that the applicant provide the documentation that it has admitted several times that it maintains, that it carefully curated with respect to, and that before this commission receives any new permits, that the violations be addressed and it be determined what went into this site, what was used as illegal fill, what was used and what was used to grade the site, and to investigate that and deal with the violation, as I think that the citizens of Monroe, and certainly my client, expect. And I look forward to addressing the commission further on this as time will allow.
Thank you, Mr. Green, for your comments.
Thank you.
Is there any other members of the public that would like to comment tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. My name is Steve Finn. I'm an attorney. I represent the owners of 64 Cambridge and 4 Independence Drive. I've remained silent through most of the hearings before you with regard to these properties, but at this point, based on Attorney Green's deceptive comments on April 8th and tonight, I feel compelled to address these now. I want to give you some facts that have...
Well, this is public comment. This is not a time when you need to address comments by another member of the public.
I understand that, Mr. Chairman, but Mr. Green has been commenting on what he says is going to be an application that's coming before you. I think only in fairness, fundamental fairness, I would say, Mr. Chairman, at this point that I should be able to address the comments that he made to you during the public portion, that I should not have to wait to address them. I think that's only fundamentally fair. I will be brief, but I think that's it's only fair that I be allowed to address his comments at this time.
If you can be brief, Mr. Finn, go ahead.
Okay. So just some quick factual background. Complaints have been made by Mr. Green's client to the DEEP for well over a year now. He's made at least 3 complaints. One on November 26, 2019, one on November 21st, 2019, and a third on December 3rd, 2019. And those complaints raised the exact same issues that are being raised here, that inappropriate fill was brought to this property and deposited on this property. Now, I'm trying to speed through this. There's a lot more to this, but Mr. Chairman, in deference to your request, I'm going to be brief. The DEP went out and inspected this property twice in response to these complaints that, for example, 100 truckloads of dirty fill was brought to this property. After those inspections, the DEP found no actionable violations with regard to this property. And so what we see here, and Mr. Green has conceded this, that these kinds of complaints about the type of fill on this property are within state jurisdiction, DEP, or the EPA of the federal government. They're, with all respect, they're not within the purview of a local planning and zoning commission. And in fact, the materials submitted by Mr. Green regarding these types of materials all indicate that if some of these materials are coming to the property, there's a specific number to call at the DEP to complain. None of this handout that he gives say you should call your local planning and zoning commission. And that's simply because these are all issues that are planning and zoning, DEP issues are not within the jurisdiction of a local planning and zoning commission. One other point, and again, I really have a lot more to say, but in deference to your request, I'm going to keep it short and sweet. Because the applicant wanted to alleviate concerns about materials coming to this property, in connection with the Inland Wetlands Commission hearing, he retained a world-renowned engineering consulting company which specializes in environmental matters. That company is called WSP USA, and they wrote approximately a 200-page report written by a licensed environmental professional who's licensed by the state of Connecticut to conduct these environmental testing. That WSP tested the following: stockpiles at the property, soil borings. They conducted test pit excavations. They did soil sampling. They did groundwater sampling. They did surface water sampling. And Mr. Green and Mr. Metropolis were given a copy of this report months ago, as was the Inland Wetlands Commission, and no violations of any standards were found by this renowned engineering consulting firm. And the independent expert hired by the Inland Wetlands Commission, Mr. Russ Dorenjo, also said that he found no concerns based on WSPS's testing of any environmental concerns. What we saw in the IWC proceedings was a hijacking of that went on for months, while Mr. Green raised spurious claims that ultimately, all environmental claims of contamination were ultimately rejected by the IWC. And what he's trying to do now is the same thing. So I leave it at that, Mr. Chairman. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Finn. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak tonight? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the next order of business, which is public hearings. We have number 4 on the agenda, RAA 2021-02, Mixed Use Design District and Special Development District, continued from 3/4/21. Do we have any new exhibits on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, exhibit number 8. And this is from Solely Engineering dated April 30th, revised draft of the proposed text. That is all.
Thank you, Rick. And I believe for the applicant, we have Mr. Soley.
Yes, good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. Office is located right here in Monroe at 501 Main Street. With me here this evening is actually a number of representatives from our team. Primarily, Stan Gudnowski is going to help participate in this presentation tonight. As the commission is aware, this is for a proposed regulation amendment to create the Route 25 Main Street Design District. As we've talked about with previous presentations, what we wanted to do with this was basically break out our presentation into kind of small, meaningful chunks. We've had discussions on the method in which we're proposing from a zoning standpoint on March 18th. We've had a detailed discussion on the location of where this design district could fall on April 22nd. And tonight we're here to talk about density discussion and affordability component for the proposed regulation amendment. And just to orient everyone and refresh everybody, so again, we're proposing to create an overlay design district along Route 25, extending from the town line of Trumbull north toward what we carved out for a potential future Stepney Village Design District, and then continuing from the northern edge of that future district all the way up to the town line with Newtown. What we talked about at the last hearing was actually the individual parcels, which would actually be eligible for this design district. And what we talked about was at length was parcels over 2 acres in size would be eligible for this design district. And similar to how these districts are used in other municipalities, what it does is it allows the commission to view an application through a SDD process, a special development district process, which gives the commission ability to look at underlying requirements, bulk requirements, things like that, and essentially plan a property on a property by property basis. And by pursuing a design district designation, it gives the commission a lot more teeth, flexibility, and discretion to view projects based on their merits, and it gives the commission complete discretion on how those applications could be processed. So we've talked over the length of the hearing to date. We've talked about some minor tweaks we've made to the regulations. We did submit those for the record. I'm just going to touch on them really briefly. One of the things that we did is, again, we took out we restructured it a little bit where we took out the ability to pursue multifamily development or any apartments or mixed-use developments for properties from 2 to 15 acres. So only properties that exceed 15 acres within the limits of this design district would be able to pursue multifamily developments. So we eliminated that for under the 15 acres in size. We added some additional language to more closely resemble the Newtown's South Main Village Design District, which basically just allows for some additional flexibility in developing projects from 2 to 15 acres. And then we just, as we had talked about at length at the last hearing, or previously, for projects over 15 acres in size that we are looking to pursue a multifamily component, we basically moved the criteria associated with that to Article 8.2.3, which is where the other supplemental conditions for special permit use exists in the regulation. So we created item Q, which would be multifamily developments within the Main Street Design District. Those components are still the same in intent as they were before we just moved them to this section, but we did move them to this section so that it just creates and better structures the regulation and how the existing regulations currently sit. So just to refresh everyone's recollection, because the main purpose of tonight's discussion has to do with the pursuit of multifamily for those parcels over 15 acres. So I'm just to run through some of those criteria and limitations that we built into this reg. And then I'm going to ask Stan to give a presentation on a report that he just completed, which I believe we submitted to the commission, but basically talks about the potential impact to school systems and how a project that could be pursued under this SDD could actually be a net benefit to the community and not have any of the potential impact that we know the commission is certainly concerned with. And we did a lot of research to better break that down. And we're going to go through that tonight. But first, I'm just going to run through again the constraints we put in. So only projects over 15 acres in size would be eligible to pursue a multifamily development. The density proposed as part of that would be would not exceed 15 units per gross acre of the parcel. And we use that actually to be somewhat consistent with some of the other multifamily developments that are allowed in some of the surrounding communities. The town of Trumbull has a few different zoning districts that allow multifamily apartments. And those densities actually range from 12 units per acre up to 20 units per acre. We chose 15 as kind of a happy medium. And again, in Monroe, the overall constraint for any of these potential developments would be underlying septic capacity. And we've included a requirement in the reg that if someone was going to pursue an SDD over 15 acres and pursue multifamily, there's a requirement that they provide a detailed analysis from the septic capacity standpoint so that the commission can have confidence that if an application comes before you, that has been analyzed and investigated and can be supported on the property. Additionally, I just want to point out there was a recent article that came out on May 2nd of this week where there was an analysis of how apartments have impacted the town of Trumbull. And it was actually very interesting as a lot of the fears and concerns about multifamily development and what the impact to the school systems could be The first selectman in Trumbull basically said those fears haven't come to reality. And actually, there hasn't been an impact on the school system that's really created any strain. And the tax benefits from those developments has provided a considerable contribution to the town of Trumbull. And I encourage you guys, it's available in the Trumbull Times, and I think the Connecticut Post Insider had it as well, but it's definitely an article worthwhile for the commission's consideration. So moving on to some of the other components, maximum building height of 42 feet or 3 stories. We restricted that there's no 3 bedrooms permitted in the within the MDD or trying to pursue an SPD for this. We did not provide a restriction on the density, or excuse me, the unit mix in terms of 1 bedrooms versus 2 bedrooms. I'll say that if the regulation is approved, we would be working on a project that we would be proposing, which would probably be about 65% 2 bedrooms, with the balance 1 bedrooms. And I think Stan's going to be able to talk about that a little bit more to better understand the potential issues associated with that. And in his experience, the 3 bedroom is really what creates a change from an impact from a school system standpoint. Some of the other components, we have some other protection measures built in here in terms of other things that have to be incorporated into the design of the site, which I know we've reviewed in previous applications. So with that, I'd like to ask Stan to come online and maybe turn his camera on and present to the commission some of his findings from what he's analyzed regarding his experience with what the potential school-age children generation is for various multifamily developments, and then talk some of his specific analysis into the Monroe public school systems to talk about what a potential development may have from an impact standpoint.
Hey, thank you, Kevin. My name is Stanley Niezdowski. I'm president of Realty Concepts Incorporated, located in Guilford, Connecticut. We provide real estate consulting and advisory services. My background, I spent 25 years at NYU as an adjunct in teaching investment analysis, taxation, and market analysis and gap studies. And I've lectured throughout the United States and have a pretty extensive background in developing some of the demographics that people may see from Esri and from other places. The purpose of the analysis was to estimate the number of public school-age children apartments may generate. The methodology that I used was to analyze the 11 sites that were submitted that were 15 acres. And as it was narrowed down to two parcels based on Mr. Soli's analysis that would conform to the proposed regulation amendment. Only one site has been discussed publicly that had data that was available to analyze, and that was 127 Main Street in Monroe. And that proposed site would accommodate or be developed with 174 units, approximately 71 bedroom units and 104 2-bedroom units. As you may know, the highest demand today for apartments is 2-bedroom units, and the propensity seems to be people renting a 2-bedroom unit. Because of COVID and because of the working from home trend, they use that 2nd bedroom for an office, is what the trend is we find in the market today. Excuse me. I analyzed the Monroe School District. I did a 6-year look back utilizing the state of Connecticut Department of Education data from 2014-15 school year to the 2019 to 2020 school year. That was the only data that was available. And that's the chart that you see on your screen right now. Enrollment declined, and I looked at the district, the entire town, Monroe School District. The enrollment declined 163 students in that time period, down 4.9%, went from 33,288 to 3,136. One of the most important things that we want to look at is the student-teacher ratio. The student-teacher ratio indicates a lot of data as to how well the school system was performed to see if there's dramatic changes in the student teacher ratio would be concerning. But Monroe didn't have that issue. The student teacher ratio went from 13.94 to 13.88 students per teacher. Inclusive of all teachers and paraprofessionals. When I say teachers, that was general teachers and special ed teachers, to clarify that. Inclusive of all teachers and paraprofessionals, the ratio went from 10.13 to 10.02. There was an improvement there. Total staff declined from 557.2 to 531.8. And what was just reported for the October 1st, 2021, the state of Connecticut reports all its data as of October 1st. And the 2020 and 2021 school year has not been published yet, but was able to get the data that just reported enrollment as of October 1st from your school board. It was 3,133, a slight decline. As of March 31st, 2021, you had 40 new students come into the town of Monroe. That wasn't because of apartments, that was because of demand. And so I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that fact, and that apartments had no impact in the additional 40 students. In analyzing the proposed project, the one elementary school that would have been or will be impacted is the Stephanie Elementary School. For the same 6-year study, enrollment declined from 474 students to 430 students. That's a drop of 44 students, or 8.7%. They lost one general teacher. Special ed teachers remained the same over the entire period at 4.5, and paraprofessionals declined by 2.4. Student teacher ratio went from 13.9 to 13.2. And as of October 1st, enrollment for 2021 was 429 students. The 13 student impact that you're going to see for this particular project impacts the student teacher ratio to 13.6 to 13.2. So what are the things that influence public school age children? Income has an impact. Higher income levels tend to produce fewer public school age children. The other is birth rates. And we do have a chart there with birth rates that you can look at that's in your packet. But birth rates have declined, as well as women giving birth at a later age. At about age 26 is the typical birth rate now. And this is also the age that we're finding that families seek to purchase a home. And you see on the screen is some of the supporting data. Lifestyle changes have dramatically impacted apartment demand. Empty nesters, senior citizens seeking reduced expenses and to remain close to their families, and lifestyles for millennials and Gen X have impacted apartments. Some of the demographics to support what I just said: the estimated population for Monroe was about 19,500 for 2020. Your median income is 124,000 and have an average income of about 154,000. The median net worth is about 648,000 with an average net worth of 2 million, which is pretty impressive. And income levels impact the school age children. Like I said, higher income levels have the propensity to provide less school age children. So we performed an analysis, and if we could go to the chart with the apartments, Kevin, yeah, that's it right there. So this is an analysis of 10 apartments that are similar in location and size And some of them I was able to get the breakdown of school-age children per unit type, as you could see, and that's noted on the right-hand side. Some of them just gave me what the total number of school-age children were at the complex. And what happened was that out of the 10 apartments, they're all 1 and 2 bedroom units were analyzed. If there were 3 bedroom units, I tried to take it out of the analysis because it skews the numbers. As soon as you have a 3 bedroom unit, the number gets skewed and there's more school-age children. Excuse me. And as you could see, where I was unable to discern what unit type children lived in, I left the 3 bedroom units in there, which skewed the numbers a little bit, but not that much. And I looked at the analysis that you have in front of you, and the average student per unit is 0.076 students per unit. 174 units would produce approximately 13 students. The fiscal impact, I did an analysis to find out an estimate of what the tax revenue generated from this development would be. And that would include tax revenue generation from real property taxes and personal property tax. The personal property tax that would produce the most tax revenue to the town, of course, are automobiles. Okay, so it's the combination of both those would produce about $900,000 in real property taxes. And if we use the estimated cost unadjusted, okay, without any state aid or offsets from any adjustments for other things that are in the budget, and we use that $18,000 to educate a student, that would be about $240,000 for the 13 students. That leaves $660,000 approximately of revenue for the town to use. And if you want to look at it from another standpoint, that you could take that $18,000 divided into the 660, that would support 35 additional students that don't live at the complex. So that was basically my finding, and this is pretty much in line. And I think Kevin referenced the article that was in Trumbull, and most of the time pretty much on target. One of the things that has happened because of COVID, there's been a COVID surge where people were leaving highly densely populated areas and coming into less densely populated areas. And I've talked to a number of apartment owners, and they've all seen the same thing. Last September, there was this surge that came in where people were leaving with their children and coming into apartments. But that seems to be subsiding right now. So there is, an issue there relating to COVID that we don't fully understand yet. And but I think the trend to less densely populated areas is going to continue. I think that was experienced by Monroe with the because of COVID and the demand for the area of the 40 additional students that came into the school system since the beginning of the year. That is my report. Any questions? I'll be glad to answer them.
So as Stan just finished up his formal report earlier this week, we'll actually submit copies of that to the commission so you guys can review it in more detail. There's a lot of other information included in that report, which the commission, we certainly want you guys to review and consider. But I guess what we'd like to do now is solicit any comments or questions from the commission, and then kind of talk through some of the, if there are specific density or unit mix discussions that the commission is interested in. We want to, solicit that feedback so we can incorporate any changes into the regulation amendment that would still work for the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solly. I just have a procedural question for Rick. When we approve SCP and other applications, we always put conditions of approval. So with the text amendment, we just have to approve it or not, correct?
Right, or you have a little wiggle room in modifying some of the language.
All right.
So it's removal or status quo or minor adjustments.
All right, so what I want all the commissioners to understand at this point is we cannot discuss this in the subcommittee. If you're not ready to approve this regulation the way he's written it, now is the time to tell Mr. Solly what you'd like him to remove, what you'd like him to add, what you would like him to modify. This is the time to do that. We have no other opportunity to do that. So let's do it. We'll start on my right. Any questions? Commissioner Panici.
I have a bunch of questions, but I don't know if I'm able to do it here because I have questions regarding the subcommittee.
Go ahead.
I'm not aware of anything that happens in the subcommittee.
Well, we're not allowed to discuss any open public hearings in the subcommittee. So we haven't discussed this text amendment, and we're not going to discuss this text amendment. So all the discussion has to take place here.
Which is not really a text amendment, right?
Yeah, it is.
No, it is.
Is it a text amendment?
Yeah, the subcommittee, we invited the town planner from Newtown to talk in general terms how the overlay district and the special design district worked, and if there were any issues that the subcommittee should be aware of. It was very broad-based, Dominic. It couldn't be about this text amendment. So that's a separate item.
So the strip that we're talking about goes from Trumbull to Newtown, but there's a gap at the 59 intersection. Am I right?
Yes.
Correct.
So there was a letter from Attorney Ganem. Was that ever addressed?
Mr. Solly did not change the geographic area to include the area that Mr. Ganem wanted to be included. No, he did not. That's within the Stepney district.
Right, so is there a reason why the Stepney district is eliminated?
Historic.
I mean, sometimes it makes sense in an area like that to introduce residential that makes it more.
Yeah, Dominic, and the applicant is going to address that further tonight.
I'm sorry?
The applicant's going to address that further tonight for clarification.
Yeah, I can
Kevin will-
answer that question. I can answer that question now. So when we first started working on this, we in working with staff, what we were proposing from a design district standpoint, different design districts can kind of have different criteria built into them based on whatever the overall goals are for that specific area, based on recommendations in the POCD or recommendations from commissioners or the public. There's always been a recommendation in the old POCD, I believe it's in the new POCD, regarding creating a village district around the Stepney area, around that intersection of Main Street and 59. Our application, as it currently stands, obviously creates this design district in the geographic areas identified. It didn't include the Stepney Village District because through working with staff, it seemed as if there may be a different set of goals that should govern how a village district immediately surrounding that Stepney area should be established. There may be more rights that the commission may want to consider for that. They may want to be more encouragement for that mixed use, the apartments above commercial, things like that. What this application does is it creates the ability for the commission to look at special design districts underneath this design district through the area identified. But based on feedback from the commission, when we initially had included mixed use developments, so residential over commercial throughout the entirety of the corridor for all parcels over 2 acres in size, we received some, we heard some feedback that the mixed use regulation that the commission recently adopted, which basically allowed for the mixed use developments to start kind of as a baby step from the town of Trumbull north towards, I think, in a very limited area. So that kind of started from the town of Trumbull, then continued north, but it stopped before you got to Stepney, and it stopped before you got through the rest of Route 25. Based on that feedback, they wanted to see how that was applied and that was developed for some of these smaller lots before we just opened it up to the entirety of this corridor. So our regulation amendment has even been further modified. So we aren't even proposing that properties from 2 acres to 15 acres can even pursue mixed use or multifamily. And what the regulation that's currently before the commission only allows parcels over 15 acres to pursue multifamily. I think your point, we haven't seen the letter from Mr. Ganem, but we understand that we understand that they believe that this is a good planning tool, and they're supportive of this type of zoning mechanism to be incorporated into the town of Monroe. But I also understand he'd like to see that expanded to include the Stepney Village District and to include multifamily for all parcels from 2 acres to 15 acres. And I believe also wants it to open up along 111 and Route 34. As we talked about at the last hearing, we believe that this is a good, sound planning tool that the commission should adopt and allow for projects to come in through this mechanism. But we also believe that it's something that the commission should pay special focus and attention to kind of do it in a meaningful, managed way. And I think trying to open this up town-wide, may have other repercussions versus let's do this in small, meaningful chunks and focus on this portion of Route 25 in these areas. And then, I do think that the commission should consider adopting this principle in other parts of town. As we've mentioned in previous applications or previous presentations, the town of Newtown has multiple different design districts throughout its community. It has the Hawleyville Design District, it has the Sandy Hook Design District, it has the Exit 10 Commercial Design District, and it has the South Main Village Design District. And in each one of those design districts, the commission and the community establish their own set of criteria that they believe should be considered based on the geographic part of town. We believe that the town of Monroe, we think that this planning tool is good and should be utilized on a broader scale, but the current application is only for these areas. Now, if the commission feels strongly that they want to open it up to other areas, we want to hear that feedback because as Rick mentioned and as Chairman O'Reilly mentioned, once the hearing closes, the commission is limited with what changes they can make to the regulation that's before you. However, during this process, if we get feedback that the commission wants to see the geographic area expanded or more of a discussion on affordability requirements for multifamily developments over 15 acres or a specified unit mix that they only want to see for types of development, we can, during this process, if we hear that feedback, we can propose to modify the language that's before you so that once we get to the end and the public hearing closes, we want to make sure the document before the commission is something that they feel comfortable with and confident with and something that they can vote to approve.
Okay, so in following with that, I have one question. So what we're saying is, and I'm addressing everyone, that the Stepney district will be contemplated at a later date under different circumstances?
That may be the case. And Mr. Chairman, can I further clarify a couple things?
Yes.
I think now's the time to make a comparison to the mixed use that we recently adopted. The mixed use was supported by the 2010 POCD. The leadership at that time said, let's put it on all of 25, all of 111 and 34. We had a hearing on it, and ultimately you pulled back from the Trumbull line on 25 to Norwood Street. You shrunk it from those three geographic areas. What you're hearing for this hearing is most of 25, except for the center. So now what the chairman is asking of all the commissioners is, do you like this zoning technique? And if you do, what changes, if any, you would like? And one of the, yeah, and one of the big issues, because we did it with the mixed use, is the affordable units provision, because that's got to be addressed. So to answer your question, yes, we have a petition for most of 25, except for the center. Do you like the technique? If you don't like it in its entirety, the chairman wants to know. If you like it, most of it, the chairman wants to know. If you need to tweak any of it, the chairman wants to know. And furthermore, if you want to expand it, you would have to do that at a later date, because this petition is limited to what the public hearing is for tonight, for that geographical area.
I understand.
So I think everyone's in sync with where we're at and where the commission's got to go.
I have one more question. So we arrived at starting with 15 acres. What prompted that? Why not 10 acres? Why 15?
Well, I think the applicant is using their property, Pond View.
Their property.
Right.
But does that establish a rule in going forward?
It will.
They're doing that as a starter, and that's what you're here tonight to digest. You got an analysis now of how many school-age children could result from 1 and 2 bedroom units for that size development. The applicant has also shown you all the big parcels on the 25 corridor.
My question is, we're starting a standard based on an applicant. I don't know if I want to do that.
Well, that's what the chairman wants to hear.
Okay,
Absolutely.
That's my point.
Yeah, but sometimes it takes an applicant to start a standard.
Right, traditionally, that's the way
That's how it works.
it's been done in Monroe, is an
Should we
applicant.
make our own rule other than the applicant?
Sorry?
Should we be basing on our own criteria, not on?
Yes, that's what we're doing now. We're using his
Right.
suggestions to start, but we're going to put in what we want to see in this.
And thank you.
And if I can continue with that too, Mr. Chairman, you're limited in what you can do in terms of changes on this application. That's what the chairman is saying. What do you like? What don't you like? And if you want more in it, your hands are tied to a certain extent. It means,
Well, if the applicant agrees and puts in what we want him to put in, then great. If the applicant disagrees and we disagree, then we just say no at the end.
I just don't like to make a ruling tying us as a commission based on the applicant wishes.
Well, I think the important thing is that this is a text amendment to give us a tool to use. Technically, we could approve this and the property they have in mind, we could say no when they come in front of us with that. This doesn't guarantee that we have to approve that, which is what makes it a nice tool. It's something we can use when appropriate.
Right.
And you're talking about the number. I like the number 15. I wouldn't, I'd consider even going higher because you bring it down to 10, you're going to raise that potential for school age children and for more of that multifamily development.
Not 10 acres. Right?
Yeah. So the more
Acres you have.
Less acreage.
acres you have, the more school kids you could technically get
The more
again.
development you can have.
Yeah.
Not more. No. It's not more school kids.
Well, more mixed use
Or mixed use.
more multifamily.
Right.
Because that cap right now is on multifamily development within this.
Correct.
So if right now it's at 15
Correct.
and up.
That doesn't automatically
And
our schools.
they regulate a 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom.
I think, right, we're talking about the same thing, just using it differently.
Yeah, I think so.
You're right. If we go from 15 to 10,
Mhm.
right, there's more availability,
Yes,
but that doesn't guarantee more.
of course, because he showed us properties with wetlands and
If
stuff.
somebody
Sorry, no.
comes in the future with a 10 acre, are we going to say no because we already ruled on that?
Well, no, because you
No.
went through what basically this would be able to handle with the wetlands, and Kevin Soley went through all that with us and showed us, were you here for the last meeting where it showed the breakdowns of them all?
I didn't agree with him then and I didn't agree with him now.
What
No,
did-
but I'm saying that the the amount of land that is out there to be used. Don't forget, Dominic, we have to take in consideration the septic systems too, that it could accommodate these.
There really weren't there really weren't that many more 10-acre parcels.
There wasn't.
No,
At 10, I mean, if we dropped it down to 2 or 1.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, you drop it down that low, there's a billion of those.
yeah, and the
If
applicant.
you even brought it down to 10, there's not that many more parcels where this could go. It doesn't increase that availability so dramatically that we're flooding that side with. Listen, at the end of the day, a person's gonna come in front of us for their best interest, correct? Right? So they're coming in front of us right now because they have a property that they want to use. And they also, at the same time, want that property to be one of the few, so that becomes more desirable, right? But this is, in turn, we need to decide, A, is this what we want in that area? And figure out how to make it happen or not to make it happen. I mean, I don't think it's a big secret. They have a property, they want it obviously to go because they want to use it for that property. You know?
It's okay to approve that property for 15 acres, but I don't want to limit if somebody else comes in at 10 acres, say, no, we're excluding it because we already set a precedent. That's my only argument.
No, but with the overlay zone, it kind of gives the ability to, listen, at the end of the day, that doesn't guarantee them even to get there.
Our regulations should not be based on an applicant coming in.
What?
Our regulations should not be based on a client coming in for his particular use.
But no, I understand that, and I think that this should apply.
That's how it works.
But I'm saying that sometimes you have to get into consideration that, would you like it to be 2 acres? Because if it's 2 acres, somebody could turn around and put a thing in there and fit, how many units could you fit on a 2 acre, Rick?
They said they were going to do 15 units per acre, so 30.
So you could get 30 units on a 2 acre. And you think that the septic system is going to handle that?
Well, then we reject it accordingly under septic system.
So
I
you're
understand that, but I'm saying, if you cut it down too short, you're going to have everybody trying to put it.
I think we're short-sighted. That's my opinion. We're short-sighted. Here's an applicant coming in with this particular use. He has large acreage, so he's saying that he's going to put so many per acre. But with somebody with lesser acreage, he's going to put lesser in there. I just don't want to be able to set our standard on an applicant.
So you'd like to see language in there allowing mixed-use design on a 10-acre site, let's
I
say.
think that the commission should stand by itself based on the COPD and everything else and say, look, we're going to limit at this number of acreage, this number of units on this whole corridor, not letting an applicant dictate to us what we should put in our regulation.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, staff can provide this type of language that Dominic is talking about. So now I'm taking down notes. I hear what you're saying, because in my other town, the standards were not all spelled out. It said, submit your proposal with your standards. We'll have a hearing and decide if it's in the best interest of the community. This is starting at 15 acres. So these are all the issues that the chairman's trying to get out of you. And I hear where you're coming from.
Just because another town is doing it doesn't mean it's correct.
But Mr. Chairman, I think we should ask the applicant to show the large parcels again on the map.
All right, Dominic, so you're in favor then of making it less restrictive, allowing this on smaller?
This commission coming up with some regulation that we decide it should be not based on an applicant.
We did. We came up with a mixed-use regulation last
Where did we get the
year.
15 acres from?
But we limited our regulation to a smaller area in Monroe, and we didn't discuss larger projects, and larger projects were not included in our, so he cannot do his project based on our regulation. So he's coming back and saying, look, that regulation doesn't work for me. How about if we do this? And then we're going to go back to
The
him.
application, is he's changing our regulation?
He would like to change our
We
regulation.
don't want to change the regulation. We should take his application and grant it under some other condition, but not change our regulation.
His application, this one right now, is to change the regulation. You mean the one before for the?
Right,
No, the mixed use stands the way it was, Dominic, that we already put. We only put it on a certain area.
Yeah, the mixed use is
We
limited.
have to corridor
And
it
it-
because we
yeah.
wanted to start off in a little area.
I'm with you on that, okay?
Right.
I just don't want an applicant coming in saying, change your regulation, just change your regulation to as my parcel, but don't change the regulation carte blanche.
I think,
Dominic, just so you understand, our regulation that we wrote doesn't go where this property is either. It stops.
Stops in
This
nowhere.
property is nowhere near.
I understand that.
Right, so he's giving you an amendment right now for the rest of that. For everything else,
Okay.
our regulation still stands.
Still things?
Still stands.
Regulation will always stay.
But it's the lower third of 25.
But it's only till Knollwood. Their property that they have is up by the Shell station, which is not close to where our regulation stops at a certain point. Then they're saying they're going to go
This
up.
doesn't change our regulation.
Our regulation still stands.
Right.
This does not change ours.
In this regulation, and this text amendment, we don't have to approve this. Because we'd have to change the zone to approve this, and we don't ever have to change the zone for anything. So
But Mr. Chairman,
we have to bring an application in front of us. But if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, we don't have to do it, and we don't have to change the zone. So if we don't change the zone, it doesn't go anywhere.
Thank you for.
Paul, let's just have one conversation, please.
Thank you for the explanation. The only thing, maybe I'm a little bit confused because I'm not at the subcommittee level, and some of the stuff doesn't come to me, and sometimes I'm blinded.
This didn't go through subcommittee.
No, none of this went through subcommittee.
No.
Not this part. The
No.
subcommittee was, we made our own regulations for the mixed use. That went through the subcommittee, then came to the commission. This never came to.
yeah, we talked about Newtown.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Condon, do you have any?
yeah, I want to, Kevin, I want to go back into what the regulation will say and if it will require affordable housing or a percentage of it.
Sure. So the current draft in front of the commission does not include an affordable component because as the commission may remember, we actually came in formally to you to talk about this concept. We went to the subcommittee to talk about this concept. We didn't really receive a lot of feedback, which is why the application looks the way that it does. But we're here engaging in dialogue because we want to make sure that we can include something that satisfies the commission's concerns regarding affordability. So some previous iterations of drafts, I think what we would likely propose and would be something that would be consistent with how the mixed use regulation was approved, which I believe had a 10% affordable component based on just the 80% of the median income. What we've done is we reviewed that, internally with our team. We think that we could apply that same language to this regulation amendment, which would, I think it would satisfy the commission's concerns, and it would also enable projects to be developed, which would still, work from an economic standpoint. I think, we're not looking to make it an 830G requirement, which is a higher percentage, and difference is, different median income levels. But I think if we were to apply the same affordable component that's in the current regulation, I think that's something that we would be supportive of, if the commission was supportive of it.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner
Yeah, well, I
Ambrosi?
have no questions. Ryan answered my question that I want about the affordable housing.
Commissioner Mayini?
Yeah, so I'm also in the boat with the affordable housing. I definitely think there needs to be some sort of component in there. And I'm open to suggestions for that, especially with our numbers there. So I'm into that. The one question I do have is when we talk about that second bedroom that's primarily an office, that's like a tricky slope there, because yeah, it may start off as an office, but generally that's going to end up into, at least my head, it's going to end up with a child in it. So when you guys are, what are we looking at for 2-bedroom apartments? I know you get more money for that. So in turn, you'd probably want more. But I also think there should be a certain percentage on that.
Well, so as we mentioned before, the project that we're potentially looking at, if the commission views this favorably, I think is approximately, and Stan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's approximately 55% 2-bedrooms and the balance 1-bedrooms. And I think that's why we wanted to include the analysis that Stan completed, which even based on that unit mix, that would still only result in 13 school-age children, even for a 174 unit development.
Well,
That's correct.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that number. I know what your stats say, but I also know that I have a lot of friends that have children that are in their mid-20s and they want to stay in Monroe, and financially these 1-bedroom is perfect for them currently, but they want to stay long-term in Monroe because they love the school system, they went through the school system and all that kind of good stuff. And that 2nd bedroom, again, is going to start off as an office. And my feeling is it's going to turn into a bedroom for a child, which, listen, at the end of the day is great. I'm not opposed to getting younger people to stay in Monroe and raise their families here and the whole circle of life thing. I mean, I'm not going to be in Monroe for the rest of my life, so it'd be nice if a younger person came in and took my house as well. But that being said, I mean, I don't think out of 174 units that are being discussed that it's only going to increase by 13 school-age children. I don't care what your numbers say and what your research you did. I just don't believe it. That's just me on that one.
Can I piggyback on that?
You can piggyback.
So yeah, kind of to go along with what Bruno's saying, I do see your numbers and I do understand how they can work. My concern with the data is that they're different towns. It's not Monroe. It's not Monroe's school system that you're looking at. You're looking at Trumbull. You're looking at Shelton. Some towns that don't necessarily draw school students as much as Monroe would in their school system.
Well, we do have Shelton. We do have Trumbull in there.
That's awesome. Shelton school systems and Monroe school systems, sir, are extremely different.
No, I know that, but I don't have an apartment complex in Monroe to analyze.
No, and I agree.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not, and that's you're working with what you have, but that's the concern that would make me in my head agree with Bruno a little bit.
That we don't agree a lot, but
that it might
that's a good step.
It might inflate those school age numbers a bit.
With me.
The question is, if it were to double, is that something we're okay with?
Listen, at the end of the day, I'm still, when you look at these POCD numbers and you're looking at how we're not retaining some of these younger people that are coming through our school system, and they're quickly looking to live somewhere, but they're looking to move out because they can't afford Monroe, or maybe they don't want to get into a house ASAP. And, I love the whole apartment idea and getting younger kids that have graduated college that want to stay in Monroe. I mean, Monroe's an older town, and, there's a beauty to that also.
You think another percentage might be better suited to Monroe? You're thinking in percentage terms, is like instead of 50% 2-bedroom, 25% 2-bedroom?
Well, I don't think we should go that low, but my thought process is I don't think anybody knows, right? Because there's nothing to compare to in Monroe.
Right.
So at the end of the day, the research is right, but the research could also be very, very wrong, and we can't go off of that number solely because that number could really, I don't think it'll ever hurt the town, but I think it could really make our town really go into a different direction quicker than we anticipate. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, we're a smaller town, so budgeting is a huge concern. So we don't need to have things change on us extremely rapidly if a 2-bedroom all of a sudden brings that up to 100 kids per se. You know, I don't think it would ever do that, but just, you know, speaking hypothetically, if that number just quickly hit our school systems super fast, you know, and then we would have to, you know, a lot of changes would have to be made. Again, I love the whole apartment idea. I love trying to keep the younger graduates in town. I want to keep them in town. Would love to see some younger people. I just don't know exactly what the percentage is that, you know, that works best, because we don't have anything to compare to. It's really where I'm coming from.
Is there any way we could look at a percentage of the units being age restricted? Is that something you can look at or no?
That's
Or
what
do?
Yeah, it's,
Maybe we could do that too, but.
Ask Mr. Solly.
I mean, even, I know there's some places they're classified differently that might even be 21 up, right? Or no? Isn't there some place in Shelton that does that?
no,
They're not a country club and
55 and older and 62 and older.
that's it?
Well, listen, at the end of the day, that would scare away that young couple. I don't want to do that either.
Well, the other thing
Not the whole
that I
thing.
wanted to ask is that,
I can't hear you. There's 7 layers of plastic in between us.
well,
Hold it, go ahead. Yeah.
if this all requires a zone change, right? So if they bring something into us that we don't like, we don't have to change the zone to allow it.
Correct.
Is that right or
You don't
not?
have to approve the text.
That's the checks and
We
balances.
don't have to approve this text amendment for them to do it. And so at that point, we could change what we want, what we don't want, right? No?
Well, we could approve this text amendment and then make changes.
No, but I mean, but in order for them to get the application through us,
What was that?
Yeah, the zone change requires you to say yes or no.
yes or no, but if they come in with an application that's too extreme that we don't like,
Right.
they don't change it, then we don't have to change the zone.
Yeah, let me clarify. There's 2 parts to this application. The overlay district, as Mr. Solly identified,
Right.
except for the village center,
Yeah.
that allows you to petition for the zone change. If you don't like it, you deny it.
Right.
But what we're going through now is the standards in it, i.e. minimum of 15 acres. You know, Dominic's saying, why are we saying that? Because the other town I came from did not meet that criteria. There wasn't any criteria. That's to the extreme now. So these are all the issues you got to discuss.
You're going to give us some examples of that. Are you going to give us some examples?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm getting a lot of good information tonight from the commissioners talking about
How
it.
much longer do we have on this application? Does anybody know?
Do you know the timeline?
Yeah.
We have one more meeting, right?
Kevin, do you have the date readily?
We have like another meeting.
I'm not exactly sure the timing. We could certainly look at that.
Kevin, do
Yeah,
we
Kevin
have
did
another one after this? Wasn't it a 4-part series?
Yes, there
no,
is.
we
another one.
did. We anticipated presenting at the next meeting as well.
Okay,
4-part series, huh? It's a mini series.
mini series.
Commissioner Mayne, anything else before we move on?
I don't know if I even got my question answered.
Go ahead, ask it again.
So long-winded. What's the matter? No, I'm good. I think we discussed it, and I think, you know, I think with what I heard from some of the commissioners and stuff, I'm sure I mean, I know we'll figure it out. That was my concern. And I know you can't compare, what you would get out of Monroe because we don't have anything, but you know, Rocky Hill is an hour from here. Glastonbury is an hour and 10 minutes from here. East Lyme's far. Is that Norwich or Norwalk?
It's Norwich. And what I'm comparing is apartments of
That's on the
similar,
other side of the country.
well,
I mean, that's not the greatest comparison there. But I see Shelton and Trumbull, so at least,
You can't get any closer than that.
I mean, you can't get much closer than that, but
No, but those families are moving to Monroe for the school systems.
I'm
Shelton and Trumbull are moving to Monroe for the school system.
correct.
So,
Right. Those are good comparisons, but I don't know too many
Yeah.
people moving from Norwich.
No, they're not good comparisons.
No, they're not.
They are because students are leaving those locations or here. And now if you give them the opportunity, it's going to be easier.
There's not a lot of people leaving Trumbull to come to Monroe.
Shelton, there are,
Shelton,
Shelton, yeah.
probably. I mean, I don't know
Trumbull,
for a fact.
Trumbull, their school systems, when you look at all the reports, they're in par with ours,
Neck and neck, yeah.
within a step here or there. So I don't know, outside of maybe if you want to play on a better baseball team, you can come to Monroe, something like that.
Okay, Commissioner Westland.
I'm good.
All set.
Tired.
All right, for starters, I don't want to shrink this regulation down under 15 acres. It's my opinion. I don't think that should be taken down under that. I think we talked about that at length, and I think 15 acres is a good number. And much of my opinion on this special design district is based around the impact analysis. And I'm not even close to agreeing to an approval at this point. I received this impact analysis today at 12:15. And because I was at work, I haven't had any time to really read it other than just kind of skim through it. And I need a lot more time to look at it. And like I said, my opinion is going to be based around that analysis. I will say that I hope the study comes to us with proper substantial basis and not just an education enrollment study. Things like a traffic study would be important, as we already have a problem on 25 that exists. Adding 174 units is going to exacerbate that issue. Further, the student ratio that the town provides at this point, that's been improved, in my opinion, is not such a bad thing. As far as I'm concerned, that ratio is in the direction that, a lot of the taxpayers in this town would like to see it. So I'm not indicating here that I'm against it. I just simply need to study this analysis and look at it and see if it's applicable to what we're working with.
Thank you. I'll
Did
just
anybody
say
get that study
that's
before I
actually
did?
great
No.
feedback.
I just
Thank
don't
you
think
for
that we had enough time to read it, Kevin. That's my thoughts. This is very, very, very important to this decision, and we absolutely need to look at this and spend some time with it.
And that's why we propose to do this over this longer discussion period, so we can actually put the thought into it. And I think your suggestion, part of a pursuit of a special development district, what we did is we spelled out the process in which you would bring in an application. And part of that is that parcels over 15 acres in size have to also provide additional analysis as part of the request for that concept approval. What we included in that was documentation demonstrating the septic capacity of the subject property for the proposed uses, including a fiscal impact assessment to study overall municipal budget and services. And these are from some other portions of the regs, but say whether any proposed division of the tract into separately owned or operated units is proposed, and then to designate whether any dwelling unit will be held in condominium ownership under the State Common Interest Ownership Act. We could add to this component a traffic assessment, because I think, to your point, I think that's, for the commission to really consider an SDD, a special development district, you probably want to spell out and make sure you understand those other components. So I think that's a great suggestion, and we can add that to the regulation to include that in that next phase, so the commission has the information in front of them before they could even consider approving an individual SDD.
I don't have any issues with an applicant bringing this forward, as that's part of the evolutionary process of planning and zoning. I mean, that's been happening for many, many years. So I don't have an issue with that. I mean, that's, being brought to us, and it's obviously up to our review. So there's no issue there. I just want to make sure that we study that, and each of us has a really good grasp of what's going on in that study and whether or not we feel that it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Lupo.
Thank you. A few comments, questions. I just want to make sure I stay focused on. I feel like there's two things being talked about tonight. One is the actual zoning regulation, and the other is whether or not we like the apartment that's being discussed. I like the actual overlay idea. I agree with Rob that I like the 15 acres. I think it prevents too much growth too quick. I know with our current mixed use that we just approved a few months ago, or they approved a few months ago, we said in a year we're going to come back and assess how it's going. And I don't think we're even 6 months into it yet. So I think we need to kind of look to see what our current regs are doing. I did read the Trumbull article as well, Kevin, and compared that to what we're looking at tonight. And it had some good points, which we can talk about, if we do approve this, when the application comes to us for the housing. One of the things they talked about was how many amenities that are for children, and that would pull in more kids. So that was a big topic too of that article. Another thing that I would like to add in, if we are going to do the multifamily housing, much like Rob asked about the transportation assessment, I would like to include the Board of Ed to find out, if we do end up with more than 17 kids. As a Stepney mom here, our classrooms are huge and we don't have a lot of room for growth. And the numbers that I see are a little bit different than the ones in the report. So we have seen an increase in students. Our class sizes are huge, way over what we want them to be. So I would like to know what the Board of Ed thinks and how much it would cost if we had to end up redistricting the whole district. Because once we allow one multifamily in, if another one at 300 is going to come down the road, we're just adding on to the same school district. So I would also like to see this eventually brought to other parts of town. Stevenson area or 111 near Trumbull. I think there's other areas in town too that could benefit from something like this. I think that's all I have.
So
Everyone else already answered my questions.
you'd like to see a specific analysis
Yeah, I
on
mean,
each project as it comes forward,
I would like that because
similar to a traffic analysis.
what I would hate to do is approve something and then we end up with, I know we're saying 17 kids. I agree with Bruno. I highly doubt we're only going to get 17 kids if 65% of the apartments are 2 bedrooms. I'm all for kids staying here. I'm all for, we have divorcees in town that are going to want places to go with kids. I'm all for that growth. But at the same time, we need to be cognizant and aware of what it's going to do to the town resources. So if it's going to end up needing to redistrict, how much is that going to cost? What is that going to look like? I would just like some more information about that before making a decision.
Absolutely.
So that's all.
So Kevin, do you have that written in there, an analysis of education, or you have a impact analysis on utilities, or? Yeah, sure. Go over that again.
Let me pull that up. Sure. So the right section. So what we included was including a fiscal impact assessment to study overall municipal budget and services. We can probably maybe expand upon that language so it includes more specifics in terms of an analysis on the school district and resources of that school district, because I think you raise a great point. And one of the things that I had talked to Stan about as he was doing his analysis is, what is the current student to teacher ratio? Because I think that's part of what makes Monroe such a great place to raise a family. And when we went back and looked at it, the current student teacher ratio is 13.2. It was 13.9 in Stepney back in 2013 and 2014 through 15. And again, if the assessment is correct and it adds 13 kids, we go from 13.2 to 13.6. So it wouldn't have a substantive impact, but I understand the concern. So I think, maybe we can add some language, and we can propose some additional language to that section of the regs about the fiscal impact to include some more specific discussion on the Board of Ed. Because we want to make sure that whatever the commission, we hope the commission views this favorably and adopts the regulation, but we have to make sure that the regulation you do adopt includes the specifics that you want to make sure gets included in any future application.
Okay. Well, in closing, with my last remark, my last comment, I'd like to see at least a 10% affordable housing component. That's what the state's really pushing on us. I'd like to see I'd like you to expand the fiscal impact area and add language in there for traffic analysis and for and the impact on the educational system, perhaps EMS also. I'm not really sure about that. See how you can lean it up with the 2-bedroom component, where you would still find profitability. If you could lower the 2-bedroom component, it might be good also. I'd like to see that too. At this point, I don't have any other questions. Rick, do you have anything before we go to
No, I'm looking at the time frame. We're going to need an extension from the applicant, which he'll give. Our next meeting is May 20th.
Okay.
And, I'll make my referrals to the Board of Ed.
All right. Are there any members of the public tonight that would like to comment on this application before the board? Once again, are there any comments from the public tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, please identify yourself.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Raymond Ganem. I am here listening to tonight's meeting as I have with the prior meetings on this topic. I'm here with my father, George Ganem. We own between us a number of properties on the Main Street Route 25 corridor. And this overlay district text amendment is of interest to us. And it's overall, I think, probably a good thing. But we do feel it's too restrictive in terms of the size of the parcels that would be eligible to qualify for the benefits that this type of a district would allow. The 2-acre requirement seems overly restrictive. And we would ask the commission to perhaps request the applicant to reduce the acreage requirement or perhaps even eliminate it altogether. I'm not sure what purpose the minimum of 2 acres would require, how it benefits on a mixed use type of a zone change under this text amendment. It would seem to me it would benefit the town to allow it to apply to all the parcels along the Main Street corridor to allow for the mixed use component. So we'd ask that the commission consider requesting that type of a change to the text amendment as it's being considered.
Thank you, Mr. Ganem. Are there any other members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on the application? If not, any commissioners have anything further before we continue the hearing? If not, then we'll continue the hearing. Thank you.
So just to summarize, what we'll do is we'll take the feedback from tonight and we'll submit some revised language to the commission based on this discussion, and we'll review that at the next hearing. And we'll also send Rick a letter granting an extension as needed to continue the public hearing. And we thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Solly. Moving on, we do have a new public hearing, number 5 on the agenda, SCP 2021-06. You have the...
Yeah, I got it. All right. Planning and Zoning Commission, Monroe, Connecticut, notice of public hearing to be held May 6, 2021. In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, May 6, 2021 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via hybrid go-to meeting with additional access by phone and limited in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall Council Chambers, 7 Fan Hill Road, Monroe, Connecticut, 06468, concerning the following. SCP 2021-06, file number 1631A, 5 Victoria Drive, B2. special exception permit application for building expansion to include an indoor field, locker rooms, and spectator seating, and necessary site and stormwater modification for a property located at 5 Victoria Drive, Assessor's Map 4, Lot 37/4, 1188 Monroe Holdings LLC, applicant, Victoria Drive Associates, owner. Please check the Town of Monroe website for announcements and meeting cancellations, rescheduling, and for instructions for attending and/or participating in person or remote electronically. Complete details and copies of all related materials associated with the above matters are on file and available for viewing in Monroe Planning and Zoning Department offices by appointment and on the town's website. Interesting. Sorry, a typo here. Notice was published twice, invoices Wednesday, April 21st and Wednesday, April 28th. Thank you.
Rick, do you have the exhibits?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, exhibit number 1, SCP application, number 2, regional plan agency referral, number 3, adjacent municipality referral notice, number 4, additional agency referral notice, number 5, Naugatuck Valley referral, 6, Westcon, and number 7 is the town engineer's report.
And for the applicant, I believe we have Mr. Solly once again.
Surprise.
Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. Office is located at 501 Main Street, right here in Monroe. Let me just share my screen. We're here tonight to talk about an application at 5 Victoria Drive, just to orient everyone. There's an area of the town of Monroe. Our site is just north of the town line, Trumbull. So Route 25 runs north-south. And then just past the former Victormont facility, Victoria Drive extends towards the rear, or towards the east, Swiss Army corporate headquarters, and the recently approved parking lot expansion on 10 Victoria Drive. This site is approximately 8.2 acres. Currently improved with Ole Soccer. So there's an existing 13,000 square foot building with parking and an outdoor field. We're working with, just here's a picture, as I'm sure many of you are very familiar. So we are working with an applicant who is a contract purchaser to propose the construction of a 22,000 square foot expansion to the existing building. We're looking to create an indoor box lacrosse facility, which is essentially indoor lacrosse. It's played on a field that's roughly the size of a hockey rink, and it's played similar to hockey. It's 5-on-5. It's very fast paced, and it's obviously growing sport with lacrosse is gaining popularity and has been for quite some time. And the proposed building expansion will allow the owner to bring this additional amenity to the town of Monroe. As the commission's aware, this application recently went through a couple of steps to get to this point. The site is zoned B2, which was recently changed from industrial, and there's also a parking reduction, parking requirements for indoor recreation. In total, between the existing Ole Soccer building or the existing facility and the proposed expansion, we would need to provide a total of 142 parking spaces. We actually provide area for a total of 151, but what we are doing is we're proposing to, as the commission is aware, there's a requirement that all services have to be fully paid. But there's also provisions in the regs for us to pursue deferred parking for up to a certain percentage of the required parking. What we've provided is what we're proposing is the construction of 108, the construction of 108 parking spaces, which would be fully paved and accessed, through the existing driveway with Olay, with some additional parking provided behind the building here, parking proposed along the building, to the north of the building and then wrapping around. And then we're proposing essentially a surplus or an overflow lot of 43 parking spaces towards the rear of the site, located in this location here. The application is currently before the Monroe Inland Wetlands Commission. We had our first hearing last Wednesday, and we'll have our second hearing next Wednesday. We discussed with them that we're proposing this parking really to be deferred and constructed with just a gravel surface course rather than proposing to pave this, because we're trying to, minimize the impact and, reduce any impervious surfaces towards the rear of the site. During those discussions with the Wetlands Commission, we looked at alternative surface treatments rather than just a gravel lot, and we're likely going to be revising this to be essentially a reinforced turf, which is something that could be mowed but could also accommodate vehicular traffic, so that this surplus lot, if and ever needed, can accommodate some additional parking, but wouldn't necessarily include additional paved surfaces or impervious surface or things like that. Because again, we're trying to minimize our overall impact on the property. Just for the commission's awareness, there are wetlands which surround the property in this location here, and then towards the rear of the site as well. When prior to Ole Soccer's occupation on the site, it was owned by Eleanor Evergreen. They actually went through a number of, they owned the site for quite some time, used it for plant storage and things like that. But when the current owner went to develop it for Ole Soccer, there were a number of wetland impacts that had to be addressed as part of that. As part of the construction of Ole Soccer, there was actually quite a bit of wetlands created, and this application essentially maintains and protects all of those wetland areas and enhanced wetland areas, and just proposes to essentially utilize the balance of the space. And that's part of what our wetlands application has, and why we're looking to obviously minimize some of the impervious surfaces towards the rear of the site. As part of this application, we would be maintaining a portion of the existing recreational field, but we would be reducing that down to about 130 by 75, just so that we can accommodate the larger indoor facility which is being proposed as part of the development. So you can see here, this is just more highlights of the wetland enhancement areas and such as part of our wetlands application. We are proposing, as I believe either Rick or the chair mentioned, we do have comments from Scott Schatzline, which we are responding to, and we hope to address all those before the next meeting. Part of our, we wanted to obviously solicit any feedback from this commission, solicit feedback from the Wetlands Commission, and we've revised our plans accordingly in response to that feedback, and we look forward to feedback from you. From a stormwater management standpoint, we're maintaining the stormwater management basin which was constructed as part of the Ole Soccer. We're actually proposing to collect our runoff from the roof stormwater and route that through an underground detention system in this location here. And then the balance of the stormwater towards the rear of the buildings is collected through a series of catch basins and then routed through hydrodynamic separators prior to discharge into the wetlands. And we've been able to reduce peak flows for all storm events in accordance with Monroe requirements. We're also proposing a small basin, which will essentially probably act as an expansion of the existing wetlands towards the rear of the site, just to accommodate stormwater runoff associated with that surplus parking or deferred parking area that we just discussed. The site, the west branch of the Pequannock, does run along the northeasterly property line through this area here. And with that, there is some floodplain associated with that. We are proposing to construct a small portion of the building within that floodplain. However, we have done a compensatory storage analysis, and through some grading towards the rear of the site, we're able to provide adequate compensatory storage as to not reduce the flood carrying capacity of the property. And that's something that we're reviewing with Scott Schatzline, and we'll certainly secure all necessary floodplain permits as part of the permitting process. And this plan just kind of shows where we're able to provide some of that additional flood carrying capacity as part of our proposed development. We have soil erosion sediment control plans included in the package. They comply with the 2002 Soil Erosion Sediment Control Manual, which includes silt fence with hay bale backing, stockpile areas, things like that. We have a utility plan included in the application set. As part of this development, the existing building is not sprinklered, so we will be bringing in a new fire service to provide sprinklers for the building expansion. We'll also be required to slightly expand the existing septic system to accommodate additional septic flow from the new building, and there's adequate room adjacent to the existing field along Victoria Drive to accommodate that. We've done testing with the health department and provided copies of those, provided the necessary applications to the health department and Matt Bertoli as part of the proposed development project. We have a pretty extensive landscape plan. As part of this, we're looking to really kind of create a really nice entrance so that when you come into the site, there's a nice drop off with some really nice aesthetics. We're enhancing some of the plantings around the perimeter of the site, and we're actually looking to relocate some of the existing trees that were planted as part of the Ole Soccer so that we can kind of keep some of that robust native planting, which has grown and flourished over the past several years. And then some additional planting enhancements towards the rear of the site surrounding this lot. We're also proposing this lot to be kind of surrounded by a picket fence or a fence to, a wood fence to kind of delineate that area to show where that additional parking is and obviously provide some protection to the surrounding natural resources. We have a lighting plan in the package. We're primarily lighting the majority of the lot with the existing light poles which exist and some additional lighting along the proposed building. We do have one small light pole proposed towards the rear of the site along the access drive to the surplus parking lot. One item I wanted to point out was we've received some conflicting feedback regarding the lot, in that our initial application, we actually proposed to have a sidewalk through this area to provide some access. Some of the feedback from the Wetlands Commission was we wanted to remove that to minimize that disturbance. The current plans that we have up on the screen, which have been prepared in response to that discussion, we've actually proposed to eliminate that sidewalk. We feel that the 24-foot wide drive aisle is more than adequate so that if anybody's parking in the surplus lot, there's adequate room to kind of walk along that drive or walk along the shoulder without the need to construct a sidewalk. And we'd certainly be curious to hear the Planning and Zoning Commission's feedback on that, because I do think that'll come up as part of our next presentation with the Wetlands Commission. But at this point, we are proposing to eliminate that. The town engineer's comments did include a comment to further extend that further to make sure we had that sidewalk connection. But again, we believe that from an operation standpoint, this likely won't be utilized much. And even if it is, there's more than adequate room for someone to walk safely from that lot to the proposed facility. The proposed building expansion, we have gone to the Architectural Review Board. You can see it's a little bit light just with the existing building here. And then obviously we have a proposed vestibule and canopy for the new building. It's slightly askew just based on the shape and configuration. But it's proposed to be two color metal panels, off-white base with a green above the roof with some stone veneer and wood siding on main entry with the metal roof. That's the existing building. The proposed building obviously is with the Fox Lacrosse facility. Does comply. It'll match the existing facility with those two color metal panels with the stone veneer to match the existing, and then fiberglass siding, which makes the appearance of wood on the main entry, and then with the metal roof. Rooftop units have been designed to be towards the rear of the site so that they're not visible from Victoria Drive. And then, as I mentioned before, we are proposing a sprinkler for the proposed facility. And then we also have the floor plan included. And again, this really is just a large rink We do have some bleachers and a small mezzanine to accommodate just the additional viewing area. But the facility itself will have a very large indoor field, which will be able to be utilized for box lacrosse, clinics, things like that. We have locker rooms and bathrooms and storage proposed as part of the expansion. One of the really interesting parts as we learned more about this and our client, the contract purchaser, is part of a consortium that recently acquired the professional lacrosse team that used to reside at Mohegan Sun. They relocated that team to the Albany market, but actually part of this would likely include some exhibition games that can be played down here in Monroe for that professional lacrosse league. There aren't any teams in Connecticut, but certainly having an affiliation to that, I think, would be pretty cool for the town of Monroe to have that with the professional lacrosse team. Even if they're based out of Albany, but it's kind of cool to have this be another facility that has a relation to that. That summarizes our presentation. Again, we're here just to talk about a proposed building expansion. As I mentioned, we will be formally responding to Scott's comments tomorrow. We wanted to see if the commission had any other comments or questions or concerns regarding our proposed design, and happy to hear feedback from the commission and then open up for the public.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Solly. Let's go to the commissioners. We'll start with.
I have no question.
Okay.
No
questions.
Commissioner
I have no questions.
Ambrosi.
I'm good. I'm good. This is pretty cool. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. I do have a question. My bad. Sorry. Don't be mad at me. That back parking lot, you said you're gonna put gravel on it? Or a surface that you could mow? Wouldn't that be grass?
Yeah, so we initially wanted that just to be a gravel surplus lot. Through comments with the commission, with that kind of surface, there's still the potential for weeds to come up and maintenance issues. So what we're gonna be modifying is to propose that to be constructed with like a reinforced turf. And I can show you a picture of what we're talking about.
Yeah, because that's going to be really close to the wetlands.
It is, which is why we wanted to, really kind of minimize that. Let me open up a picture kind of showing what that would entail.
I mean, being that close, I think asphalt would be not a great idea.
We agree. What we're looking to do is actually a reinforced turf, which includes kind of like a plastic honeycomb system that you can put, soil in and then grow grass, but it's stable enough to accommodate vehicular traffic, but it's something that can also
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that, we can minimize that, minimize that impervious surface, minimize this additional stormwater runoff and things like that, but still provide a stable surface that can be used for, surplus parking if needed. And again, I think from a regulation standpoint, obviously the commission requires all finished areas to be paved, but I think we can, what we're proposing is to defer some of the parking and then just have some of this as excess lots. So we believe that the commission can approve this type of treatment for that area in accordance with the regulations.
Is that system used a lot?
We've specified it on quite a few projects where we may need to maintain access to a detention basin or things like that, but not necessarily pave a driveway or to that area. So it is something that can be used, and it does provide that additional reinforcement so it can be utilized for vehicular traffic. It is sold at Home Depot. It's very popular. So it is something that it may be more prevalent than you may realize.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I was just thinking so close to the wetlands, you definitely wouldn't want to pave something like that with the runoff. All right, thank you. I'm actually done this time.
Right, I've read the narrative and looked at the comprehensive engineering report. think it's well written. This field is going to be limited entirely to lacrosse.
No, not entirely. It'll be available for other, events as requested. It is being constructed as part of a box lacrosse facility. But I think from an operations standpoint, there will be some potential for other uses, as scheduling allows.
They're definitely playing soccer on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a good idea. Anyway, also in the narrative, we're talking about the existing lighting being used. Is that lighting dark sky compliant at this point?
It is, yes. So when Ole Soccer was constructed, that was approved in 2015 and 16. All of that lighting was dark sky compliant. Pictures. And our proposed lighting matches what was previously installed. And again, relocating some of the existing stuff that's out there.
And my last thought here is I see that the septic system is an engineered system with an effluent pump chamber. It's going to be cleaned, inspected, and they're going to add on to the existing fields, as I read it here, that they're not going to be replacing the field system.
That's correct. Well, the existing system is operating, and it has been operating, since Ole Soccer occupied the space and has been using the space. We're simply proposing an expansion of that system here. So the existing facility is actually pumped up, for the existing septic system. It goes into a tank and then it's pumped. We're just basically expanding upon that. Just based on, because those systems kind of sit up high and grade and bringing gravity from the building. For whatever reason, when it was initially constructed, it included that pump, and we're just simply adding on another leaching field here to flow from the building expansion.
Got it. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I agree with Rob. Everything was really well written, and I think this is a great addition to the town. I think lacrosse is very popular, and I think adding any indoor ability between the cold weather and the wet weather, I think it's fantastic. I agree. I would like some kind of sidewalk going from that overflow to the main lot if possible, if wetlands can kind of figure that out. Could you show me, I'm just wondering about traffic flow. To be honest, I haven't been to Ole very much, but I can only imagine with a lacrosse field there, there'll be a lot of parents dropping off, picking up, waiting in line, kind of like an in-sports down in Trumbull. What does the parking lot look like for traffic flow?
So the site's access via just a single driveway on Victoria Drive. What we did to accommodate that was we kind of created a larger area with a nice, decorative raised brick circle, to kind of support that circulation, to encourage the ability for someone to kind of come in, spin through, drop off in front of the site, and then essentially, leave if they had to. But the other thing we did is we've incorporated and provided for full circulation around the buildings. And then obviously an expansion of parking along the northern side of the proposed building through here to make sure that we have adequate, parking and circulation. The existing site doesn't have that full circulation around the building. There's kind of like a gravel path here, but from a parking standpoint, you come in, you can park, and then you can obviously leave, or then you can kind of circle through this parking lot. But our project will create that circulation around the entire building so that people can adequately search for parking and not necessarily get caught somewhere where they have to try to turn around or back out or something like that if the lot's otherwise full. And again, since we are proposing that full circulation around the entire lot, as you get towards the rear, you can always go to that surplus lot if you need to. But we feel that during most operations, there'll be more than adequate parking around the facility to accommodate the use.
And great, thank you, Kevin. And would that also, I'm just thinking ahead, if, professional lacrosse team or the high school teams are in there, is that will also allow buses to get around there pretty easily too, if they're dropping off a team or waiting for a team?
So they wouldn't necessarily be able to utilize this drop off just based on where the existing building was and other site constraints, but it does allow for them to circle the site, and then pull through the entire facility.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set.
Okay. Well, I want to commend you on using low-impact development for impervious surfaces in the Monroe site. I'm waiting years to see something like that in Monroe. Hopefully it'll work. I also see something I haven't seen before, a pavement runoff. Can you explain what a pavement runoff is?
Well, I think that likely would just be, stormwater runoff that's running across pavement. I'm not sure what specifically you're referring to.
So it's stone, yeah, that sounds like what it is, running across pavement. You mean in a laminar flow type of?
Yeah, I think so. Well, what we're also proposing for this rear lot is we're not proposing curbs or catch basins. So essentially, stormwater that would hit this area would essentially just sheet flow into the basin we're proposing right here. The rest of stormwater that lands in the parking lot is routed through catch basins and then treated prior to discharge, to remove total suspended solids in accordance with the water quality manual. So, we did incorporate that into our design.
All right, thank you. Rick, do you have anything?
No, I attended the architecture review board meeting and they have reported favorably. I'm just finishing that letter, so you'll have that for the next meeting too.
Okay. All right, then let's go to the public. Are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on SCP 2021-06? Hearing none, are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on this application before us? If there are, please make yourself known. If not, then we'll go back to Mr. Soley.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate all the comments. As I mentioned, we still have to get through the wetlands process, which we hope to do on Wednesday. We would obviously expect to leave the hearing open, but hopefully after next Wednesday, we can secure our wetlands approval, and then we can close this hearing and move forward at your next meeting on the 20th.
Okay, thank you very much. We will continue this hearing until the next regular meeting on March 20th.
Thank you very much.
Probably just finished. Yeah, we are. Okay. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess.
I'm old with a small bladder, Ryan. Just relax.
I'll schedule an appointment for you tomorrow. Come to the office.
Yeah, we take care of that. I don't like your office. I'm afraid of what happens in your office.
You might be sleeping. You okay?
I don't know where you're all going. The men's room is single serve.
We're very close, Commission.
Come talk to me tomorrow. We'll talk in the morning. We're sleep tonight, okay?
Is it still being recorded?
Okay, I love you, sweetheart.
Still on?
So sorry.
Yes.
Pumpkin.
Thank you.
Bye.
I withdraw my comment about the men's room.
And I keep mine out there. We're close, Commission.
No issues.
Monday. She might play tomorrow. I say tomorrow. We're lucky.
Well, till tomorrow night. Tomorrow I'll get out on time. I'm setting an alarm to get out on time. I went to, what do you call it? Home Depot. Yeah, I went to Home Depot. I had to get rice. Poison. Yeah, I did a 4 month plan, 4 month plan. Like, another crawl on the fireplace. Are they? My wife stays up late to watch Netflix. Yeah. So we came back. You got mice too? Yeah. In the country, you always have mice. I had a mouse in the food cabinet that ate some of my dog food.
What were you doing?
I called him.
Good.
$400 later, he dropped, I think.
How was your trip?
Around the entire.
It was 80 degrees every day.
Where'd you end up going? Florida, right? What part?
You put a southern place. I knew you were just gonna put out 40 traps. I wouldn't have thought you about 40.
Oh, that's cool.
Knowing what I know now, I bought.
Frogs?
Big alligator.
Alligator?
It's like $40, $50. Why did I spend 400 for you to come and do it?
Key West, I haven't been there in years.
Now that I know how to do it, I'll do it myself.
Yeah, it's
Now I'm interested.
place, the Conch Republic.
DIY?
Yeah, it's
DIY mouse killer. Yeah, yeah.
Want to go back?
Yeah, Scott got it.
How are you, Nicole?
I'm busy but well. I have a season at work, so it's been
We got on the agenda tonight.
12-hour days.
Are you still thinking you're on town council?
No. I'm staying put.
Oh, you said no to that?
Yeah, I'm happy here. Yeah.
Well,
Taking a break.
I'm gonna get a little more experience under my belt first, I think.
well, this is a pretty good way to do it.
Yeah, I love
Fairly
it here.
formal setting.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll eventually
Good to you now.
regular consumer though.
I don't know, someone's gotta go. Who's gonna get voted off the island?
You're right.
They're all good guys. I don't, anything to leave.
I don't know.
They're all good guys. I got no one.
I don't want to see anybody leave.
No,
but
me either.
I was on an alternate for like a year and a half
Yeah.
before. Well, somebody moved up. Usually that's what happens.
Yeah.
What's Brantford? Yeah, Brantford's up 95, right?
Oh, O'Hara moved.
Oh, he's on council, right?
Somewhere, I don't know.
I think he's on council.
Yeah,
O'Hara,
Salisbury, isn't it? That's off of 84.
Board of Finance.
Oh,
That's how I.
Anything that cuts across, can change 4 to 95. Yeah, rural roads.
can't go anywhere right now, I'm telling you. Every commission I go on, he's on, I join, he leaves.
Where you headed to next?
I'm not moving. I'm moving.
Put in your 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was very honored to be asked. Very honored. I'm very
Well,
happy
you're,
here.
We're glad to have you. Yeah.
You
I
know,
was a little nervous when I heard that. About that Vegas thing.
yeah, I thought about it and my heart is here, truly. My heart is here.
Oh, good.
So,
Yeah, it's a feather in your cap being asked, you know what I mean?
very much, yeah, I appreciate it. It just, right now, this is, I worked so hard to get here and
It's better here anyway. I'm not just saying that being biased.
this is more, am I muted? No. This is more interesting to me.
Okay.
I don't know what members of the town council actually do.
I
They're
tried
members too.
asking.
I'm with you. And I've said that before.
So, I tried asking this question. A few people couldn't really get much of an answer.
You vote.
Yeah, you do vote.
Money donated to the town. Nice. I really like that. And being at EDC pushed me to really like this.
Yeah.
So, and I do regulations for work. That's what I do. Regulatory auditor for a health insurance company. So
You're used to regulation.
I'm right. Yes.
Great.
Having to abide by them and how to run reports to make sure that we're doing the right thing and all that good stuff.
What's up, Bill?
What's going on?
Same old, same old.
No, 2 weeks ago, you promised you were gonna give me a call. And now 2 weeks, I've been waiting, holding my breath.
You're right.
I didn't get a call either in the past. What's going on?
Had a lot going on.
Yeah, ARB.
Yeah.
Mike, what airline did you do JetBlue to?
Oh, I don't even remember. It was crowded.
Was everyone on the plane?
Yeah, but it was nice. People behaved.
People behave, that's always good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, there was.
absolutely.
Because nobody wants to get taken.
Yes, there was one.
Guarantee it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I've seen that happen.
One time I went to Mexico with a buddy and we both got bombed and we were getting a little loud towards the end of the flight. We were 20 at the time, you know.
She's like 250.
You don't need too many people.
Huh?
And there was 3 prenatal births. Maybe wait,
I don't do all this agreeing with me shit. Okay?
I'll try not
Calm
to.
down.
Left a bad taste in my mouth.
Don't worry, there's always, Leon.
I'm good at that, John.
He needs like a little bit to get up there. Because the incandescent with the LED.
I know, it's hot as fucking here.
We're still recording, by the way.
Sorry.
It was a light right over it. He used to cook me on top of her and he'd be nervous. Just sitting there with the light on. I am too, yeah.
That's just awesome.
Oh, I had to write it down.
Commissioner Miami, right?
To be honest.
And my teacher was.
Yeah, exactly.
That's nice.
Back on the other one until you inbuild morale and
Being in this little box doesn't help.
tank top and reset in the same seat.
Little boxes of things.
So are they allowed to come, the
Yes.
presenters, and they just choose not to?
Soli said it was so much better for him to, because everything's at his fingertips, you know?
So cheapo.
Next thing you know,
Nice.
you're in the right spot.
I love how Bill shows up with that top being a donut.
Top cat, mice.
Step in the right
What is it?
place.
Of course it is. All right.
Don't worry, no, I'm sorry.
What do we have left? Minutes,
Okay.
and that's,
Oh, I'm good. You can run over there.
oh, no, we have.
Just it.
Is anyone tired besides me? No.
But,
Tired.
yeah, I'm tired.
Well, Rob, he talked, his application was 2 minutes, so he goes, I'll do a 20-minute talk, Rick. For ZBA.
Yeah, dude, what took you so long?
Well,
My fourth
You
call.
can't just keep it simple, bro.
well, I wanted to give them something.
It should be like this
They
right
they
now.
showed up and
And I'm
they
like
needed,
yawning.
I didn't want to do them a disservice,
Why? They wanted to go home.
They only meet every
They meet
month.
once every
They
year.
had a chance, they went out, they went to the dance, and I wanted to let them dance,
You wanted to play an extra tune for him? My brother goes, I think this is my first meeting in 2 years.
When they were approving minutes from 9 months ago, I was like, okay, we'll give them something right.
Yeah, Rob, that was pretty funny, wasn't it? Rob noticed.
Can we get the minutes through?
I'm not even gonna bother asking who was present. Right? He just,
Yeah, you remember those, right?
Jim was pretty good. He went with the flow. You could tell he's a staff person.
That guy Dom, I was having trouble reading him. He kind of, you know what I mean? Do you know him? The guy Dom that's on there? Kind of had this smug.
Smurgalino? Smurgalino?
Yeah.
Smirk.
You don't know him?
Yeah, I went to high school.
I don't know.
You don't know him?
No. He's Terry's friend though, right?
Of course.
I went to high school with Dave.
I'm like, I should know him because I know his.
Did he
name
tilt his
was
head at you at one point like a good dog? Like, eh? Eh?
It was cool. It was fun. I couldn't wait to do it. I was like, let's get it on.
I think it was more for you than it was for them. You were like, let me put a show on, let me show. They're probably like, oh, dude, this guy's coming here for a shed. Like, can we go? Like, can we just vote? My brother actually goes, why couldn't we just do that online?
And Rob, remember, can I get a motion from someone?
Anybody?
Remember?
I wanted to interject so many times.
I know.
I'm like, sit still.
Now
Sit
you-
still.
Now you know how Mike feels. Can I have a motion, please, just to
Yeah.
get this off the table?
Motion. And then we couldn't get that fourth vote. And it was like, and then all of a sudden,
Eternity.
yep. And I was like, I didn't hear any of it. I'm like,
I know, I thought she was gonna go ahead and disqualify myself.
oh God. I was telling somebody else, I still had a lifeline because they offered up like, because there was not that many people there, like another meeting with more people. I'm like, I don't want to use that lifeline, I want this done with.
What, Dan, go make water? Was he mixing a little hydrogen and oxygen? What the hell is going on?
Fashioning a catchment.
Bill, can you get Leanne?
Well, Don's missing too.
He left, yeah.
They went for water. Were they digging a well?
Leon probably went for a smoke.
Artesian.
No, me and Leon went for a walk and he smoked. And he had to yell at me and
I
smoke.
wonder how long ago it was that people sat in here and smoked during meetings.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Maybe what, 30 years, 30 years?
Yeah, in Shelton, it was right up to 86.
Wow. Imagine that.
Last year, I thought Leon left. No.
Secondhand smoke.
I remember sitting on here.
Leon has a cloud around him all the time. I don't know.
I wouldn't be on the board.
Leon has this cloud around him all the time, so I think he smokes in here now.
Ashtrays.
Yeah, right in the thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, when you got someone that was a chain smoker, you're doomed.
Watch the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. He's just sitting there smoking a cigarette as he's interviewing people. And everybody who's interviewing was smoking.
I was thinking when we travel, like, which state is it? They still ask you smoking or not smoking, and I'm like, outside, please.
You guys digging a well?
I can't even like handle the smell of it at all. My asthma just popped right up on me.
Leon said he went about 300 feet down. He finally found some water. He's coming back.
Was it clean water? Was it
I
contaminated?
was getting water.
You know about it?
You were making water. Making water was getting water. Just call Bobby, ask him if he gives some hydrogen and oxygen.
Rick, we need like a lounge, just maybe like a gravity chair.
One of those. Huh?
2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen.
Well, these chairs aren't too bad.
No.
Yeah, sit down here for
My office at work, they're starting, they must be that pressed leather, because they're starting to like get shitty.
Oh yeah, my work went at home. I had to throw away because they did.
Younger sister.
They'll start peeling off.
That's turning.
But there's a term
to the walk in.
It goes like 8 years.
That's always the.
What's that? But I also like, I'm like, push up on my chair and sit Indian style. And I'm like, Mom, like, what?
Gotta get comfortable.
Went to the walk in, they put her in the ambulance, put her down, brought her down to the hospital.
What is going on?
Put her on medication, now they got her
As soon as he
ICU.
gets back, I just want you to know, I'm gonna run out and grab a water.
Test them up. At least, you know what, I had an empty
You
bottle.
only have 5
And then
minutes.
I'm gonna use the bathroom, so.
Only when
I should have just peed in that bottle.
Where was
Didn't have to-
Talk about.
one time we're.
Yeah, she was,
Was
I don't know.
I was trying to make good time. I didn't need gas yet.
5 hours.
No, she started physically crying.
Dude, you suffered her.
Pulled over at that point. I
That's
was like,
terrible, Bob.
Right there.
Was it before chills or after?
Went to go.
Did you say after? Yeah.
They were in the process.
Our bladders cannot do it.
DC and we couldn't find a bathroom.
Okay.
Like, I'll give somebody $50 so let's use their bathroom.
It's like,
You made her cry?
RV.
Okay, you all ready? We've got to reconvene.
Hey, Rick?
Let's roll.
May 6, 2021 meeting of the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission. It's 9:17. Going on to number 6 is pending meeting minutes. So we have April 8th, 2021 meeting minutes. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as drafted.
I make a motion to accept the April 8th, 2021 minutes.
I have a motion. Need a second?
Second.
A motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
No.
If not, we'll call it all. Ryan?
Condon, yes?
Ambrosi, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Passes. Second, we have April 22nd, 2021. Meeting minutes.
Motion to approve April 22nd, 2021.
Hey, Bruno, were you there for that meeting?
Bruno, were you there? Was I there for the April 22nd?
Didn't you run it?
No, that was 28th.
I ran the 28th.
Yeah, you were there.
You missed, were you there? I think Bruno.
I was there.
You were there.
I never miss.
Okay.
So we have a second.
Oh, maybe you showed up late.
I second.
I've never
We have
showed
a
up.
motion and a second. Any discussion? If
No.
not, we'll call the roll.
Condon, yes?
Ambrosi, yes.
O'Reilly, yes.
Mayne, yes.
Westland, yes.
Motion passes. And finally, April 28th, 2021.
Do we need to seat somebody for minutes?
No, not to vote him in, right, Greg?
No, you've got enough
We
people.
got enough.
For the 28th, entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the meeting minutes from the 28th of
And
April.
need a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
No, I don't know who's seated at this one.
Oh, no, you weren't here for this.
I ran the meeting. What do you mean I wasn't here?
No.
This was the POCD
This
meeting.
was a PLCD.
I knew you.
I was not there for that one.
Oh, thank you. There.
Okay, so
Good job.
there goes your big mouth.
My bad.
Yeah.
POCD.
Condon, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Riley, yes.
Westland, yes.
Passes.
Did I run the 22nd meeting?
No, it wasn't the 22nd.
Yes. Weren't you in Florida?
Was it the 22nd?
Yeah, the
So
22nd.
then you voted and you weren't supposed
We
to.
didn't vote.
Yeah, I did, so I'll have to
Sustain for the
abstain from
22nd.
that vote. Please.
Rick, you got that?
Yeah, 420.
Let the, tonight's minutes, like that. All right, pending application deliberations, we have none. Relation review, and work, schedule a session.
Okay, Mikey, when do you want to do that?
Rick, when do you want to do that?
Okay, we have,
I don't want to be a pain, but I can only do a Monday.
yeah, our next meeting is the 20th. That would be, the 17th would be Monday.
Next day.
You want to do May 17th?
Is it a Monday?
Yeah.
I can't do May 17th.
It's a Monday.
That Monday, actually, I'm busy.
The 10th would be next Monday.
I can do that one.
10th,
You good, Rob?
Yeah,
10th,
10th,
Bruno.
5:30?
Oh,
5:30.
Oh, Rob, my bad.
10th on month. Okay.
Yeah, the 17th, I'm busy. The 10th, I believe I'm good.
All right, so that's 5:30.
You were all available on all birthdays now.
5.
Monday, May 10th.
My birthday.
Making it?
I won't be here.
Uh,
No, my birthday.
Here. It's your birthday, Nicole?
Yep.
well, we'll have cake here.
I won't be here,
I'll bring the cake.
but thank you.
We'll sing to you. All
Well,
right, moving on. Number 9, correspondence. I have a letter from Solely Engineering requesting the opportunity to hold an informal session to discuss the properties at 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. So I believe we have Mr. Solely here.
Yes. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Kevin Soley. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Soley Engineering. I just wanted to come to the commission tonight and give you guys an update of the activity we've been working on for 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. I know it's been some time since we were before you on this application. As you recall, we had an application to for a special exception for our site plan approval back in last year, which we ended up withdrawing. We received resistance at wetlands, but we have actually gone back to wetlands a few times in order to address their concerns. And I wanted to give you an update of where we are with them and talk about how we're going to be coming back before you. We had a lot of concern about the site, and as you heard earlier this evening, there's other people that are still interested. I just, really quickly, from a clarification standpoint, I think there's a confusion with what constitutes clean fill and what constitutes demolition debris. And there hasn't been any demolition waste or debris brought to 64 Cambridge Drive or 4 Independence Drive. Clean fill has been brought to 64 Cambridge Drive and 4 Independence Drive. I think that's only reinforced based on the fact that the DEP has been to the site several times and there's been no actionable items, and an LP has investigated the site and there's been no actionable items. And, frankly, I just passed down a book to my children, and it's Aesop's Fables, and one of my favorite ones is The Boy Who Cried Wolf, because it seems like there's just continued statements made, but we don't believe they're founded in reality. But anyways, what we've been doing with wetlands is we've actually gone back to wetlands a few times because we've done a few things. We've actually received one remediation approval for a plan to immediately start to rehydrate the wetlands along the eastern edge. So just to give you a real quick preview, there is we received approval to essentially utilize the existing well in the southwestern corner of the property here, and we're installing piping to essentially pump from that well along the eastern edge up towards the southern end of this eastern wetland system, and we're starting to rehydrate this wetland now, and the commission gave us approval, Wetlands Commission gave us approval to do that through a remediation application. In addition to that, we're also submitting a second remediation application, which is essentially a modified version of our previous plan. A lot of the concerns that we had received based on our past application was the amount of fill we were proposing to bring to the property. So what we did, working in concert with the Wetlands Commission, is we modified that plan to reduce the amount of fill being proposed to be imported to the property, and also to reduce the amount of time it would take to process that fill, or to source and import that fill. So we have an application, a remediation application that's being dropped off to the Wetlands Commission, which essentially proposes to fill in the southern end of the site to roughly the same grade as the established area on the southern end of the site, and then only fill the northernmost part of the property on Forward Dependence Drive to an elevation where that will drain into this easterly wetland system. What this does is it restores essentially the same watershed that was previously approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission to feed this wetland, which reduces the overall amount of import. This plan only requires approximately 490,000 cubic yards of import, which can be done in a more reasonable time frame. And from a step standpoint, we're now we have a remediation application before the Wetlands Commission, and once we're through that process, we'll come before this commission for just the fill permit application to achieve the same desired goals and objectives that we've been working with wetlands on. I know that the commission has been considering possibly looking at the duration of a fill permit. We encourage you to continue to do that. We think special provisions and protection measures can be put in place so that larger fill permit applications can have a longer duration of 5 years, which is consistent with other special permits and site plan approvals. We encourage the commission to keep doing that. But we're excited to be able to have a modified plan that we've received positive support from wetlands. We think this helps achieve their goals as reducing the overall amount of import. And what it does is it really kind of creates an opportunity for some economic development on the site with a much shorter time frame. And we look forward to bringing this application to the commission for your consideration as well. So we just wanted to kind of provide a big picture update on where we stand, since we haven't been before you in quite some time, to let you know that we are actively working with the Wetlands Commission. We received one remediation approval already. As I mentioned, we're about to start the next step for this plan, and then we'll be before you with the fill permit application only, so it doesn't include a building. It'll just include the earthwork operations. And again, we're looking forward to working through that application with you, hopefully in a much more expeditious manner than the last one. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we can keep our discussions on point and try to avoid a lot of the other belabored discussions which made us go down wrong paths. But we're anxious to work with you and continue to work with you to try to get this property back on to be a more productive piece of property in the town of Monroe.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Solly. Any of the commissioners have anything they'd like to add? Any questions?
I have a question more for Rick. Does this make this now a suggested, proposed, or pending application? So are we no longer going to hear about this during public participation until it's actually in front of us?
We should not hear about this proposed fill permit, yes.
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How much can I comment on this?
Yes. It's an informal conversation.
I'm confused a little bit. Is he processing fill from the site, or is he processing imported fill?
He's not processing any fill on this property. He would just be bringing in the fill.
I believe both, but you could ask Mr. Solly.
Sure. So as currently, there's no activity on the property other than some of the remediation that the wetlands allowed us to do with some of that pumping. The application that will come before you that we're currently pursuing in wetlands will include essentially filling and grading the site. So all the stockpiles that are clean fill would be used to fill in the hole along the northern edge. Then we would be proposing to import additional clean fill, which could then get placed on the site. So we aren't doing any activity now. We would just be both moving material on site and importing additional material to achieve the desired goal, the desired grades, so we can get this property to be a productive property in the community again.
Yeah, I still didn't get the answer. So the fill coming, the process, is this going to be a processing plant?
Nope, this is just going to be importing material and placing that material in the hole to get to grades that'll allow for future development.
So the imported material, when it comes in, it's ready to be spread. It's clean to be spread, not being processed.
Sometimes it may need to be processed to just be crushed to, or sorted into material that can be placed in lifts that can be used for structural fill throughout the site, so the site can accommodate buildings in the future. So there would likely be the need to, take clean fill and process it in that we would just be making material that could then be placed in the hole. There's not going to be any exported material, and again, that would be all worked out in a future application. But the intent is to just bring in material and then place it in the hole in compacted lifts structurally, so that it can accommodate future building development.
So if I was to take a site, go to the site, I would see clean fill coming in.
Correct. Only material that meets the definition of clean fill in accordance with DEP would come to the site and be used to fill the hole. Correct.
Do you consider demolition material clean fill?
So I think that's the issue. Clean fill is not demolition debris. And the DEP, and I think there's been assertions made that demolition debris has been brought to the site. Demolition debris has not been brought to the site. Clean fill has been brought to the site. Now, clean fill can include concrete from a building foundation, but it's clean fill. It's not demolition debris. Demolition debris is metal and other stuff that comes when you tear down a building. There hasn't been any demolition debris imported to this property. Clean fill has been brought to this property.
I understand that, but when that kind of material comes in, then you become a processing plant, because you're going to take concrete, crush it, blocks, crush it. You're going to need a crushing machine to do that.
Yes, that's correct. But we're not a processing facility in the sense that we're not proposing to export it. We're simply proposing to bring it in, crush it, and then place it in engineered lifts to compact the material so it can be used for future development. And that's actually consistent with how a lot of other sites are filled in town, or earthwork is completed on in another part of town, where materials crushed and processed and then placed in engineered lifts.
Thank you.
Any other commissioners have any other comments?
I got one question.
Go ahead, Dan.
Kevin, on this site, on this particular site right now, you're telling me that every piece of fill on this site is clean?
The material that's been brought to this site is clean fill, and the material has been tested by an LEP, and the DEP has come out and looked at the material and said that there's no actionable items here.
Okay.
I said that some of the material needs to be processed in the fact that it needs to be placed in engineered lifts and compacted, but the material that's on the site is clean fill.
So there's no rebar or anything on that site?
There likely could be some rebar, and that could be errant, left in some, concrete material from a foundation demolition. But that's just something but that doesn't mean it's construction debris, or demolition debris. That just happens sometimes when you're importing clean fill, but that can simply be removed as part of the placement of engineered lifts and then dealt with.
Now, you said that Deep had no issues with the site?
Deep has been to the property several times, and there's been no.
And who are you referring to? Who are you referring to on that?
Sure. Hang on one second. I can actually tell you specifically, but there's been water, the Division of Waters, the Division of Solid Waste, and the Division of Air have all been out to the site.
Who inspected the site as far as through Deep?
John Burton from MSHA inspected the site on November 6th. John Burton came out again on December 4th after several complaints from a neighbor. Charmaine Molyneux and Dominic Griswax from DEP Air Pollution inspected the site on December 6th, 2019. Bill Davin from the Fire Marshal came out and inspected the site several times when claims of blasting were alleged, and they did not take place. Donna Saracen and Chris Stone inspected the property on December 9th from DEP. That's from Water Pollution and Stormwater Inspection. And then Mark Jepson from Waste Engineering and Enforcement visited the site on February 25th, 2020, and also identified no issues. Joe Welsh from the Aquarian Water Company visited the site on June 29th, 2020, did an inspection, found no issues, and they own a budding property from a watershed standpoint, and they found no problems with the site. And then obviously we had.
Hold on. I talked to Mark Jepson.
Okay.
And on the bottom of what he told me was he asked you guys for reports. And he never got any reports. He asked 3 or 4 times.
Well, we can certainly follow up with Mark. But again, there's been no action taken.
Yeah, but what he said to me was, he said that he was waiting for reports from you and he never got reports. And that I said to him that you said, and what you said again, that they didn't have any problems. And he said that he really never said that. He wanted the reports.
Well, we can certainly follow up with Mark, and Mark, like other members of the DEP, they relegate their investigation and enforcement to LEPs. And when an LEP can look at a site and do testing and determine that there's no contamination on a property, the DEP relies on that. And, we'll provide that again as part of the next round of applications, and we'll certainly follow up with Mark to make sure we've addressed his concerns.
And then you'll get us a report from Mark after you hand him the manifest and the protocol that you'll give us that?
Well, our attorney had submitted reports to DEEP, but we'll also take that up with DEEP. I mean, DEEP is the regulating agency that focuses and worries about this type of situation, and they're very aware of the site. They've been called several times. They've been to the site several times, and they haven't. Like I said, we'll follow up with Mark. We'll make sure we've addressed his concerns, but they haven't taken any action, and that's something that we'll deal with DEP.
Well, I do.
We'll certainly keep you and the commission informed as we work through this next application that'll be pending.
Mr. Chairman, hi, it's Attorney Finn again. It's really not our obligation to remind DEP what it's supposed to do. And you're right, it is a DEP issue. It's not a Planning and Zoning Commission issue. We can't control DEP. I don't believe we've gotten any follow-up from this gentleman saying we need to submit reports, but if he has sent us that, DEP has the full jurisdiction to say to us, you better submit those reports by X date. But this is not for the commission, this Planning and Zoning Commission it's not within your purview to enforce DEP regulations. It's for the DEP you don't have, with all respect, you don't have the expertise, and it's not within your jurisdiction. And so this idea that we're going to get pulled in a direction of having to reach out to DEP and ask them for an affirmative letter where apparently others have tried to get affirmative information from them and have failed, and have that sort of hold up our application because we can't get anything from DEP either, is not the way this should go. And so if you want to reach out to DEP and make a complaint, or just like Mr. Metropolis has, obviously you're free to do that. But to hold us up because DEP is not doing what it's supposed to do, or for you to try to step into the shoes of the DEP, is not appropriate. And you're putting a standard in front of us that we're not be able to meet. If we can't meet DEP standards either before or after our application is heard by you, they're going to come out and they're going to tell us that we're in violation. But I don't see where in your regulations that you become an enforcement arm for the DEP. So if someone can point that out to me, I'd be happy to take a look at it. But I've never seen a Planning and Zoning Commission seek to enforce DEP regulations or statutes. So we want to be cooperative, we really do, but you're putting a burden in front of us that we may not be able to attain. And frankly, it's not within your purview to ask us for this kind of information. I've had discussions with your town council about this. I believe she agrees. I would suggest perhaps that you get a legal opinion on this and let the lawyers deal with it and see where this comes out. If it turns out that you do have jurisdiction over these kinds of issues, so be it. But I don't believe you do.
Well, I believe that we need to know what's in the hole. Am I right? You had no permits to bring that material onto that property, nor did you have any fill permits on that property. So I believe that we have the right to know exactly what's in that hole.
I agree, Leon. And and I wasn't here for round one of this last year, but I am here now. And I just heard that there's only clean fill there with a few little things that have to get processed. Isn't Stratford High School in there? Doesn't that have to get processed? That seems like a little bit more than just a little few things that have to get processed. So
Well,
the statements that are being made don't seem to be adding up for me, to be honest.
So I just want to, I'd like to just back up a little bit, because we're not, we're going to go through all this when we have an application before you. We wanted to update you on where we are. But clean fill that came from the Stratford High School site is not demolition debris. It was when it was imported by a previous property owner, not the current property owner. It wasn't placed in lifts to be compacted. So that pile of material, which has been tested by an LEP and analyzed and sampled, and reports have been issued that show that that material is clean and doesn't have any environmentally impacted or contaminated materials, that pile was tested, but it does need to be placed in structural lifts so that we could build a building on it in the future.
Kevin, to tell you the truth, that's not what I was getting at. What I was getting at was that when you come in front of us, you say Deep was out there and this and that. So I said, you know what? If they were out there, I want to find out what they were out there and what they found. And if it was legit, good. But when I talked to Mark Jepson and he tells me that he asked you for reports and he asked you for your analysis reports and he never got them. You come in front of this commission and you tell me that Deep doesn't have an issue. They do have an issue. They wanted the reports and you never put the reports.
I'm not sure when you spoke to Mr. Jepson, but I can tell you that
I talked to Mr. Jepson. I talked to Mr. Jepson about 3 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, we appreciate that. We'll follow up, and we'll also give them the report that was, the report that was done where all the material was tested and the site was determined by an LEP to be clean, was also sent to DEP. So, we're going to be able to go through this ad nauseum when there's an application before you. I didn't want to get into a back and forth, and I see our good friend.
And I really didn't want to get into that myself.
And Attorney Schellenberger turns his camera on. I don't think we need to get into an attorney back and forth. My hope is that the next time we go through a formal application, we can have less attorneys and more collaborative discussion between the commission and the applicant. I think that's only going to help us all get to where we all want to be, because we all want to get to a place where we know that we have a site that's clean, that doesn't have any issues with it, that can be put back into a productive place. We can get some economic development. That's my goal, and I hope the commission shares that goal. And I understand, for any commissioners who may not have been here for the last time through, again, there's all kinds of misinformation out there, we believe, and I think we'll go through that in detail. I don't want to belabor that tonight because we wanted to give you guys an update. I appreciate the feedback and the concerns, but the material that's been on the site has been clean till it's been tested. We'll go through that in more detail, and the allegations and assertions that there's something more there, something sitting there, and there's been consistent, repeated complaints that haven't been acted upon by the regulating agency who's enforced to do that. I think that's an important point that we need to remind ourselves. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sully. Any of the other commissioners have any other comments? All right, well, we'll look forward to your application.
Mr. Chairman, will you hear from the public?
You don't have to do it.
Right, isn't this not a public?
Sorry?
What's the problem?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Will you hear from the public at all on this?
No.
Not tonight, but we will. All right, so moving on. We have the commissioners' reports. Next is chairman's report. I have none. And then are there any commissioner reports?
I don't know.
No, I have none.
None?
Nothing.
Any commissioner reports?
No, sir.
All right, Rick, land use staff report.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Town Planners Report dated May 6th. Next ZBA agenda is June 1st. Cited council, nothing's been received during this reporting period. Regulations Subcommittee, last one was April 15th. We discussed outdoor storage and signage text amendments. That is on the May 20th Planning and Zoning agenda, and the subcommittee's meeting May 10th. Zoning Enforcement Program, 125 Gardner Road. I just learned that the owner is preparing subdivision plans for the commission to review, which will involve the removal of equipment. 485 Pepper Street, owned by the same owner. Incoming earth material has continued to stop. They're just concentrating on the Pepper Street reconstruction. We have two complaints in enforcement for 18 and 24 Bug Hill Road. And I'm pleased to report that Joe Chapman, the zoning officer, has resolved it. Both of the property owners are willing to be in compliant. No zoning citation program hearings during this reporting period. Anti-blight, 337 Monroe Turnpike. The owner is finalizing the environmental assessment before the demolition takes place. 1586 Monroe Turnpike, that's the Stevenson Post Office. They started painting, they're continuing to paint, and they started work on the roof repair work. This building is going to be demolished when they sell it, but in the meantime, he's agreed to upgrade it. Outdoor dining, minor site plan applications. We have started the review of 3 applications: Vazzi's at 417 Main Street, Asteria at 89 Main Street, and Monroe Social 494 Main Street. At the next meeting, I will have all of these 3 to show you the plans. We are moving forward. There's a lot of interest. 2 out of these 3 are for permanent, and Monroe Social is temporary. Temporary meeting, they'll remove it after the fall season. Planning matters, as the commission is aware, we adopted the 2021 Office and Policy Management, received it the next day. They checked the town of Monroe is all set for the next 10 years. That means no delays in grant applications. And our next P&Z meeting, as reported, is May 20th. And we are up to 8 new single-family homes as of May 6th. That is it, Mr. Chairman.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.